There are vampires in Gotham City. Two bodies with their throats ripped apart have been found, but no clue of who did it. Meanwhile, in Wayne Manor, Bruce Wayne has a nightmare of a woman that comes to him and gets close to his neck with a promise of eternal life. Bruce wakes up just as the night begins. Batman goes out to the streets and he hears the screams of a dying man. He gets there as fast as he can, but he is too late. The serial killer has struck again. Time passes and the number of victims increases to 19, but there is still no evidence of the killer. Meanwhile, Bruce keeps having the same dream of a woman coming to him while he sleeps to bite his neck. He doesn't know why, but every time after he awakes, he feels stronger. That night, Batman finds the killer. He confronts the woman as she is biting the neck of her victim, but Batman soon realizes she is not a normal woman. She appears to be possessed by a demon, and she attacks with supernatural strength and ability. The woman easily defeats Batman and escapes. The Dark Knight then analyzes the body of the victim and finds the real evidence. Not a slashed throat, but the mark of a bite. Batman returns home at dawn and spends the entire day locked in his room, sleeping, because he no longer wants to go out in daylight. At night, Bruce decides to go to a doctor to check his blood, but on his way there, he realizes he now has super strength. Batman decides to check with a professional, an expert in vampires. The recent murders, his dreams, and the fact that red rain has started to pour on Gotham as a result of chemicals in the environment make Batman think that vampires may be real. After talking to the vampire expert, Batman goes to a cemetery and finds out that the bodies of the slashed-necked victims are no longer in their graves. He follows the trail of mud to the underground sewers of Gotham, and he goes down to whatever hell awaits him. The sewer water is red because of the red rain outside. Batman follows the trail of red water until he comes across a pile of dead bodies. But not all of them are dead. The ones in the bottom start to crawl toward Batman, showing their fangs and ready to attack. Batman engages in combat with the undead and manages to get a couple of good punches, but soon he is overwhelmed and outnumbered. Right then, a group of rogue vampires show up and save Batman. They are led by Tanya, the beautiful woman from Bruce's dreams. At that moment, the Lord of Darkness himself shows up and uses his powers against Tanya and her followers. Batman gathers his remaining strength and attacks him, breaking the spell to save Tanya. Batman is wounded, and some of his blood comes out, taunting the Lord of Vampires. Batman uses the shape of the cross and daylight to fight off the monster, and it works, but the war is far from over. Batman returns home where Alfred takes care of his wounds, and then Tanya visits him once again. She explains that she has been biting Bruce's neck, but never taking any blood. She does this to give Bruce the strength and power he will need in order to defeat Dracula. Tanya was once one of Dracula's vampires, but she decided to abandon him and gathered a small group of vampires to fight and destroy his evil. They never managed to find him until now, in Gotham City, and now they require Batman's help. The next night, Batman arranges a meeting between Tanya and Gordon to alert the Commissioner about the situation. After the meeting, Batman weakens. He had lost too much blood, and Tanya arranges a blood transfusion to save Batman's life. When Bruce awakes, Tanya tells him that Dracula has captured his friend. Bruce thinks about Alfred, but the old butler is safe and sound in Wayne Manor. After defeating a couple of vampires that attacked Wayne Manor, Bruce learns that Commissioner Gordon has disappeared. Dracula has kidnapped Gordon, and he tells the truth to the old man. The human blood in Gotham City is tainted by the red rain they have been drinking, and that blood has turned Dracula into a total monster. He wants Gotham to become his new dark domain, but first he needs to defeat their champion, Batman. And that's why he needs Gordon as bait. In the meantime, Batman and Tanya join forces to weaken the army of Dracula. They lead the evil vampires to the Batcave, and once they are inside, Batman blows the cave open with explosives, exposing everything to the sunlight. The vampires die, and Tanya sacrifices herself to ensure their victory. Bruce then detonates explosives all around Wayne Manor, and the building collapses over the cave. Dracula is the final challenge, and Bruce is ready to fight him. Thanks to Tanya's blood, he now has vampire wings and supernatural abilities. Batman has become a true creature of the night. Batman flies all the way to confront Dracula, and he attacks first using silver batarangs. The fight is even as Batman now has enough strength to fight Dracula. After saving Gordon, Batman focuses on Dracula, and thanks to his fighting skills, he manages to beat the vampire. Dracula then turns into a demonic flying monster and tries to escape, but Batman flies after him. The battle rages in the sky as the red rain pours on the dark flying creatures. Dracula bites Batman, and the Dark Knight stabs the monster with a silver batarang, weakening him. Dracula falls to the ground, where he is impaled through the heart on a stake of a dead tree. The power of darkness has been defeated, and Dracula vanishes, leaving only a rotten skeleton behind. Batman watches the scene, and then he collapses. Alfred, who has been following them, arrives and cries over the apparently dead body of Batman. Bruce Wayne is dead. The news are all over Gotham, but Alfred knows the truth. He goes to a secret underground basement where Batman rests during the day. At night, the Dark Knight awakes, because Bruce Wayne is dead, but Batman is a vampire. That was Batman and Dracula, Red Rain, another Elseworlds story and my favorite of all the Batman ones that I have read. Writer Doug Moench returned once again to Batman, and that probably was the best choice for this story. As a writer, Moench is fascinated with the dark and occult themes, and fortunately these themes fit perfectly in Batman. He is the kind of writer that highlights the dark and mysterious nature of Batman, and I absolutely love that. Doug Moench had a wonderful Batman run in the Bronze Age, and during that run, he had to include the Batman comics as part of the Crisis event of 1986. One of the major aspects of the Crisis were the Red Skies. Moench incorporated them in the Batman comics, but he also included something of his own. As part of the climax to his longest story arc, Moench came up with the idea that because the skies were red, the rain would also be the same color, and thus red rain poured over Gotham. I imagine that was Moench's inspiration to write this new Elseworlds story, and the red rain here was properly developed, as it was explained as a chemical phenomenon, and it provided a terrific setting for a tale about vampires. The Batman comics have always been greatly connected to the horror genre, and that's why Red Rain works. Batman has confronted several vampires in history, going as far back as his first year in the Golden Age. Then, in the Bronze Age, Batman not only confronted vampires, he was turned into a vampire. It was just a matter of time before Batman faced Dracula, and in 1992 it finally happened. Dracula is perhaps the only character who is actually more popular than Batman. Every generation has a Dracula, from Bela Lugosi to Vlad Tepes. All of them are iconic in their own way. Dracula is such an important figure that he is partially one of the inspirations for Batman. So the idea of these two characters fighting was something that needed to happen. This story shows us what happens when the Lord of Vampires fights the Dark Knight. And the message is clear: Dracula is more powerful. There is no amount of prep time that can help Batman against such a powerful enemy. Batman may defeat the Predator, he might outsmart Judge Dredd, but with Dracula, the only way Batman can win is by becoming a vampire. The idea of Batman becoming an actual creature of the night is perfect. Normally, Batman pretends to be a dark, mythical creature because he is only human. But as a vampire, Batman doesn't need to pretend anymore. He actually becomes the most effective mythological creature against evil. I truly believe this is a great concept, and the only way to make it even better is by having the right artist. This book was illustrated by Kelley Jones, an artist who had a gift for illustrating gothic horror, and that's precisely what this story required. The dark atmosphere of the art creates the setting in which this Batman can be most effective. The Dark Knight becomes a terrible sight, shrouded in layers of cape and with ears as long as devil horns. This exaggerated art style blends the dark and mysterious nature of Batman with the fantastic concepts of vampires. So, if Doug Moench was the perfect writer, then Kelley Jones is the perfect artist. The writing and the art complement each other. They elevate everything about the story, from the smallest dialogue to the biggest splash page. It's just perfect harmony. If there is one complaint I would make about this story, it would be only about the lettering. The cursive letter, again, makes reading a bit annoying sometimes, but compared to the great things about this book, it is truly a very small complaint. Doug Moench and Kelley Jones are absolutely great. The story gets the reader involved for almost 100 pages, showing how effective the combination of writer and artist is. It was so effective that after the success of this story, Doug Moench and Kelley Jones became one of the most iconic creative teams working in the main Batman comics. But I am aware not everyone likes them. Moench's writing can be too esoteric at times, and Jones's art is polarizing. I understand that not everyone is going to love Red Rain as much as I do, especially if you like the more realistic version of Batman, both in terms of writing and art. So, if you are one of those Bat fans, then subscribe now and ring that bell, because in the next episode we'll go back to the more traditional Batman and we will check out some excellent stories from Legends of the Dark Knight. Until then, Godspeed, my friends.